Yes, it is. And indeed, she did draw sharp criticism. She went to The Hague in 2019 and defended the generals against genocide by bringing procedural objections. She tried to block the case actually happening. That's because she was in government with the generals. And to be frank, she's also of the Bama majority, the Bama people, who do harbor, they espouse some fairly racist policies, racist thoughts towards the Rohingyas. And they wanted to get this case thrown out. Aung San Suu Kyi was appealing to that large constituency back home in Myanmar. But since then, Aung San Suu Kyi has been deposed. Her party won overwhelmingly in the November 2020 elections. The general feared their power base was being eroded. And of course, her national unity government has since removed those objections, those procedural objections in the court. So we fervently hope in the Myanmar Accountability Project that the ICJ will now move to the substantive hearing against the generals and hear about the appalling barbarities which they have committed against their own people.
Yeah. Are they likely to cooperate, though? Will they not, like Aung San Suu Kyi, raise objections to the proceedings?
Well, it's a good question, and I think they will in part cooperate because they see this as legitimizing their illegitimate, failed coup. The court actually is flying in the face of what the UN General Assembly in New York, which sits next to the Security Council in UN headquarters, the General Assembly decided unanimously last December not to recognize the junta and to leave the NUG, the National Unity Government Ambassador, a man called Jo Motun, in his seat. So not only is the ICJ flying in the face of that determination by the General Assembly, it's also clear that the junta fails all the recognition tests. It does not have effective control over its own territory. It has zero democratic credentials. It lost the election overwhelmingly, has since ousted the democratic government. And very finally, that last test for recognition, the human rights record. And it is a matter of public record. Many UN reports have testified to the fact that this is one of the most abusive regimes on our planet. They have absolutely no right to be in The Hague. Having said that, we do hope that The Hague will move to a substantive hearing now.
Yes, it's that kind of chicken and egg situation. You don't want them there, but you do want them held accountable. If this case does proceed, though, what impact is it likely to have on their ongoing, rule?
You're absolutely right. We do want them to move to this hearing, and it is a way of holding the generals to account. And we hope, as I say, that the case which the Gambia have brought against Myanmar for violating the Genocide Convention will happen very quickly. And we can hear the details. Let's not lose sight of the human stories at the center of this case. Women were gang raped. Many had their reproductive organs viciously and deliberately mutilated so they could never again have children. Transgender people were deliberately targeted. Men were forced to rape other men. People were locked in their homes and burnt alive. The army went on an industrial-scale spree that drove 750,000 people into neighboring Bangladesh, where incidentally they remain to this day. The number has actually gone up to 920,000 people in Bangladesh. They are far too terrified because those genocidal policies, which we hope will be heard in The Hague, are continuing to this day. But there's one, if I might just make one very quick point, there is a body called the IIMM, which is a repository of a huge body of evidence against the generals, including against Min Aung Hlaing, the coup leader, who frankly is a latter-day Pol Pot. We have evidence of personal criminal responsibility against him, and not just the ICJ, but other courts, the International Criminal Court in The Hague and other national jurisdictions must hear these cases. There must be full accountability against all of these illegal generals who've mounted a failed coup. And unless there is full accountability, believe me, history will repeat itself. It already is.
Yes. And do you think there should be financial sanctions against some of those military leaders?
I do, but financial sanctions are only part of the story. Yes, we want to cut off their financial base. We want to cut off their arms base. There needs to be a global arms embargo. But without full accountability, my concern is that the history will repeat itself. We need to junk the junta, as I keep saying. We have mounted a campaign to junk the junta. Unless we have full criminal accountability against these people, yes, there must be sanctions. Yes, there must be an arms embargo. History, I fear, will repeat itself. Yes, the Rohingyas must have their day in court, but let's not forget about what's happening in the rest of Myanmar, where there are industrial-scale human rights abuses going on.
Christopher, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.